This interesting and very exciting story began with the main character suddenly opening her eyes in surprise. It happened one sunny day. She, Lilian Sergeyevna, 12 years old, fell from a tree which she had climbed to annoy her sister Eloise. The girl was so shocked that she remembered her past life when she was young. She was left an orphan. Everyone said that she was too evil to please anyone. They didn't give her money from her parents' insurance. She had an unhappy childhood because her aunts and cousins hated her. Everyone asked her why she needed to study so much and called her ugly. She endured all this and became an adult, and also gained independence, along with the inheritance of her parents. Those who raised her shouted at her why she was so ungrateful. So she successfully entered a prestigious university and became the best in the mechanical engineering group. She thought that a road strewn with flowers awaited her. The heroine failed miserably at an interview at a large company, where she confidently submitted her documents. How could they refuse such talent? But as if this wasn't enough for life, the girl learned that her friend had gotten this position thanks to the influence of her parents. But when they did group assignments, she only got out thanks to the heroine. And so, from the very first step into society, she received a cruel slap in the face. Trying to calm down, the girl drank all night. The heroine was so angry that she drank more than usual, and life did not go according to her plan. The girl was very angry, walked along the road and swore, how could they lose such talent and take such a scoundrel girl? It will still affect them in the future. Just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, and was thinking about how she would start preparing a new resume, she was hit by a truck that drove onto the sidewalk. He sent her not to the road strewn with flowers, but to the afterlife. Such was the end of the small theater of Shin Yun's life. She was reborn, and understood how senselessly she had died. The girl began to rise, thinking about whether someone had arranged a funeral for her. But it was no longer important. Why think about a dead body? The problem is that now she is in the body of a member of the Duke's family, Sergeyevnev. It was very strange. Even though she lived here until Shin Yun's memories returned to her, this place now gives her goosebumps. This was the home of the heroine of a hardcore dating sim, the companion of a demon lord. Hardcore dating sim is somewhat reminiscent of the taste of mint chocolate mixed with stewed kimchi. Well, the genre is the least of her problems compared to the trials that await her ahead, because in this game the heroine is none other than her half-sister, whom she cannot stand. At that very moment her sister ran up to her, shouting her name. It was a very beautiful girl with blue eyes and brown hair. She asked if everything was okay with her or if she was unwell again. Her name was Eloise. The main plot of this game is about the main character who escaped from the Imperial Palace. But no matter where she went, she still ended up in the Emperor's custody. This is a world of apocalypse with dragons, orcs, snow wolves, and other monsters. And the reason the game has a 19+ rating is not because of the romantic scenes between the characters, but because of the game's brutality. Lilian Sergeyevna was the half-sister of the tormented heroine, who met her end at the hands of the protagonist, and was the main villain. She was a genius magic engineer who tortured the heroine with the mechanisms she created herself, terrifying all the players. Couldn't she just stop torturing her sister? The answer is no. Unfortunately, Lilia is the only person in the world who can create magical power inside herself, like an enchanted stone. This means that every time she uses magic and her life is shortened, she is literally a time bomb. Sooner or later, the heroine will still die. She began to shed tears of regret for her life. Her sister bandaged her head while she was in her memories. Eloise was very glad that Lily finally woke up. Eliza still thought her sister was cute, even after she climbed a tree to throw water at her, but ended up falling down herself. Her sister was very afraid that something serious had happened to the heroine. She was very kind, even though she herself was sick. Lily could not believe that she hated her kind sister for this reason. Their father is monstrously strong, cold, looks very neat and handsome. His brothers are not far behind him. They are the same crazy idiots as he is. In this family, they have to enter into a mortal struggle for the place of the head, but her sister, being weak from birth, does not participate in the struggle. For the same reason, everyone dotes on her because of the feeling of resentment. The heroine had a desire to make fun of her sister, as if someone was persuading her to do it. Lily wondered if she was obsessed with the role of the villain in the game. Should she follow the original plot? She did not understand what to do, and therefore began to cry very loudly. Eloise was very worried because she did not understand what had happened, but she cried because her angel sister, who constantly takes care of her, will still end up being imprisoned by a crazy psychopath because of the developers, and the heroine of the Person of the Enchanted Stone has a limited life. Well, it suddenly dawned on her. She just needed to make sure that all this wouldn't happen. After all, if she doesn't use magic, she will survive. She will save mana, collect a stash of money, and run away with her sister to a warm and peaceful country in the south. Especially from the main character, a psychopath, the sister will make sure that he does not even cross paths with Eloise. Last night, she made a firm decision, but now she awkwardly asked her father what it was. Her father, who had gone out hunting monsters, suddenly returned, and when he came back and said he was glad to see Lily, he had a little boy on his shoulder. He just mercilessly threw the boy on the floor and said it was a gift. The girl did not understand how a person could be a gift, but her father was sure that children her age loved to play with dolls. But the boy was not a doll. He told her to get rid of those mechanisms that common people play with. His gaze was very menacing. After these words, the girl felt goosebumps running through her body, and at that moment she became very scared. She didn't understand what was wrong with her mechanisms, because magical engineering is a goldmine in this world. Lily was forever alone in the estate. Magical engineering helped her survive in this lonely time. But if he doesn't like her playing with machines, wouldn't it be better to give her a magic doll, which many children of aristocrats have? She didn't understand. It was as if her father was giving her a teddy bear that he brought back from a business trip. He spoke about it so easily. In Lily's imagination, it looked as if her dad was very happy and really had a teddy bear, and these fantasies made her shudder. Lily kept her gaze on this child for a while. He interested her very much. Dazzling golden eyes and shiny black hair, it was a very rare hair color, and his beauty was obvious. He seemed very familiar to her. She was afraid that it might be him. She immediately asked his name, to which the guy remained silent at first. While Lily's father was standing behind him, he very rudely asked and ordered him to answer her. The guy gritted his teeth and said that he didn't have a last name and his name was Eden. The girl knew it was him, which clearly didn't make her very happy. It was Eden von Chekhov, the main character of this finished game, who also happens to be a crazy emperor who puts people in jail for any little thing. The illegitimate child of an empress, abandoned at birth, a hero unable to die who lived wandering in the slums. He was the main character who became the demon lord in the game. However, the slums where he spent his childhood were the territory of Sergeyevnev. If you think about it, the lands of Sergeyevnev, which are close to the territory teeming with monsters and poorly guarded, are the perfect place for the developers to shove the main character there. Even if that's true, it was never said that the main characters met at such a young age. The girl began to rummage through her memories to remember something like that. Part of the dialogue of the elder sister in the original, Eloise said that the emperor burned down their house and that they had nowhere else to return to. The heroine recalled whether there was such a plotline. Could it be that the reason he burned down the entire area was not because of obsession, but because of a childish grievance? The girl immediately turned to her father. She believed that Eden needed to be released immediately. She told her father that she had already grown up and was too old to play with dolls, and the guy needed to be returned. The father asked if this meant that she was refusing. Well, she didn't have much space in her room for one more thing. That's what she called the guy. Father said that he already belonged to her, so if she wanted to get rid of him, then let her do it herself. She understood how he was suggesting that she get rid of him, by feeding him to the monster by throwing him in the forest. But even though Eden is a madman who imprisons her sister, one day he will become a hero who saves the world. So if he absurdly dies here, the world will also end. This cannot be allowed to happen, the heroine was very worried. The father was simply indignant, made some kind of sound, and said that even to throw out the trash, the daughter still needs a father. He ordered her to give the guy up, but that wasn't quite what she wanted. She screamed sharply that she had no choice, and that she looked at him and really liked this doll. She began to touch Eden's cheeks and admire what a beautiful and sweet doll he was. She thanked her father for such a gift. She was very afraid to touch him because he was angry, but she introduced herself to him. She hoped that he would be patient a little longer. The father said that the doll should call the owner master. The girl asked her father not to do this. The exhausted boy simply muttered rudely that Lillian was his master. First, he needs to get out of here. The girl suggested the doll go play family. She was going to apologize to him after that and free him. Her father told her to do whatever she wanted and just left. When he left and his force stopped, the main character thought that they had escaped. But the guy she was holding pulled his hand away and told her to let go. But Lillian put her hand on his shoulder and turned to him. She asked why his father caught him. Since he was supposed to run away, the boy was perplexed. He asked what kind of nonsense she was talking about and was extremely indignant, because it was she who said that she wanted to play family with him. The girl looked at him and began to associate him with a cat. Well, it was very similar. He asked if the girl wanted to break his arm like she was ripping off a dragonfly's wings, or if she wanted to hang him upside down and watch monsters hunt him. But the girl hadn't planned any of this at all, and was surprised that he thought of her that way, who he even took people for. She whispered to him that she was not going to play with him, and it was a pretense to please her father. The guy listened to her attentively. She told him to focus all his attention on what she was about to say. She revealed to him the secret that she wanted to let him out of the castle. He immediately became sad, because did she really want to say that she would eventually leave him? Well, he still didn't think he would stay in this place for long. He really didn't like aristocrats with their whims. The girl called him because he was about to leave. They needed to come up with an escape plan. She also said that she would take him to a safe place. He asked her what a safe place was. He was a very lost boy, but Lily said that such a place existed. This is not a slum or a castle, a place where no monsters will chase him. The guy remained silent because most likely he didn't even believe her. The Empire is not as hellish a place as this border region, so if you go inland to the capital, you can live in peace. The castle may look amazing from the outside, but in reality it is an evil palace full of evil people. For example, her father and brothers. They all don't even smile. If this one falls into the hands of her family, they will mock him and then throw him into the forest. Before that, she needs to escape from this crazy place. The problem is that the heroine herself has never left the castle alone. The sister appeared immediately. She asked why she was wandering around here like that. The girl was very scared. Eloise told her sister that she had just woken up and needed to take care of herself, but Lily was clearly uncomfortable. Lily wasn't very happy about her sister's arrival. She understood that if they met now, Eden would fall in love with her at first sight. The sister called Lily to bed to rest, but the girl was clearly confused. This moment could have been the starting point of obsession, captivity, but Lily screamed at her sister not to come near. With these words, she hugged Eden, who clearly did not like it, and shouted at her to let him go. Eloise did not understand what was happening. The sister came closer and asked who this strange child was and why her sister was hugging him, but the heroine could not explain anything. In the near future, this garbage trash will put her sister in prison and never let her see the light of day. But the girl couldn't say it directly, and she simply shouted to her sister that this boy was her doll. Eloise was shocked. How could he be a doll if he was a human? The heroine confirmed that he was indeed a human, but was her doll. The heroine thought how such a smart daughter, like her sister, could be born to their father. At this time, he was screaming for her to let him go. Eloise said that since he was her sister's friend, she wanted to introduce herself and asked if they could say hello. But Lily got scared and said that her father had given her the toy personally. She started to get hysterical that he belonged only to her, and could not allow her sister to lay eyes on her things, only she would play with him. The sister was clearly very frightened by this reaction and stopped. After 12 years of training in anger and stubbornness, these emotions come easy, but it still confused the heroine a little. She mentally apologized to her sister, but said that she was going to her room and that her angel sister should not follow her, since she would be playing family with a doll. As soon as they entered the room, Eden immediately asked what happened. He was very angry. He started to remind her that Lily had said she wouldn't play with him, but was she really planning on dragging him around by the neck? The girl apologized and simply explained that this was how circumstances worked out. For the sake of his future and his sister's future, he had to do this. Well, the guy just told her not to touch him anymore. Until she finds a safe way for him to escape, let him not even think about leaving this room. The guy was clearly very upset by this and asked why. The heroine explained that if he got into the eyes of her brothers, it would be even worse. Suddenly, someone came through the door. Eden and Lilia reacted to this and were a little confused as to who had entered. She was the chief maid of the ducal house of the Sergeyevs. Her name was Olga. The girl was clearly not very happy about her arrival, and she said at the time that there was a commotion again because of her. The maid began to reproach her for secretly bringing men into her room, and that from the daughter of a criminal, this was entirely expected. But the heroine said that this was her friend, whom her father gave to her. But does the girl know how to make friends? She is one of those who can't wait to make fun of her only sister. So said the maid. Olga had always been like this, remembering her past life. She couldn't help but find it ridiculous. She was behaving childishly towards a little girl. She kept calling her the daughter of a criminal. It was very tiresome. But there is a reason why Olga, the head maid, looked down on her mother, who was once the mistress of the house. Her mother used to be part of the imperial palace. When she married, she brought her maids from the palace with her, including Olga, who is now the chief maid. Although the northern lands are harsh and unforgiving, the presence of loyal servants allowed the mother to settle in without any particular problems. But tragedy came when she was not expected by the deserted environment and a husband who did not care for her, which drove her mother crazy. After this, for reasons no one knows, she tried to harm the maid she brought with her, but she failed, and eventually, out of despair, she committed suicide. Although she failed to harm anyone, the betrayal enraged the maids, and since they had nowhere else to direct their anger, they took it out on their daughter. They said phrases like, "Again she eats like a little pig," compared her to her mother, wanted to punish her. The girl cried at night with scraped knees and bruises all over her body and thought they were just being caring. After her mother's death, she believed that she could only rely on the maids. She missed her mother very much. The mother herself told her daughter not to trust anyone in this house, not even her father. She could only trust her and her maids. She said that even Eloise was lying and that they were the only ones who truly cared. Every night, the mother whispered these words to her daughter. Everyone in the house cared only about the sick sister, even the father. Every time their indifference hurt the girl, she remembered her mother's words, because they would never be on her side anyway. And she didn't need love. She consoled herself with the thought that the maids were taking care of her, but they mocked her, reproaching her with her mother's words that they were the only ones who needed her. The girl was afraid to be left alone and therefore did not want the maids to leave her. But on this day, Lily decided that she had had enough and was very serious. When she recalls her past life, it becomes clear that these people are real experts in bullying. The maid noticed that the girl was looking at her strangely. The maid also noticed that the girl had returned to her vulgar hobby again. The heroine was very surprised by these words. She immediately ran to the table to check her mechanisms. All the mechanical parts that were lying on the table and disappeared. It was very sad news. The girl started yelling at Olga because she told her not to rummage through her table, but the maid didn't care. The girl could recreate many of the details, but not Roxy. She immediately ran to the trash can and was glad that they were not thrown in the trash. She was very lucky that she found them earlier. She took out her invention, hugged it like her own child, and smiled sweetly. Roxy wasn't just a machine. She was created with love. If you complete her design and turn it on, Roxy can fly around the castle and also record everything while the girl is locked in the room. She was very angry that someone dared to touch Roxy. Her gaze hardened, and she sternly told Olga that she told her not to touch her things. The head maid laughed and noticed that the girl was raising her voice at an adult because of a cheap toy. She was glad that she could punish the heroine again. It was terrible how deeply the abuse of the child had taken root. Even though she has an adult mind, she still retreats. She did not understand how she could even think that she was her person, who would replace her mother. The maid told her to kneel down, but the girl refused. She remembered that she was still Lady Sergeyevneva. Lilia asked why she should kneel before her. She also reminded the maid where her place was because the girl was the Duke's daughter, so it was not she who should bow, but Olga. The main mistake was that the girl allowed herself to be treated like that. The maid was stunned. Looking back, the girl realized that she had been convinced that their cruel treatment was discipline, but she had thought so because she was scared. But now she remembered her past life and understands that she must live a new life. Olga didn't understand why she was behaving like this today. Had she really gone crazy, like her mother? She was going to scare her even more so that she would behave as usual. She stood over her and asked menacingly if she had gone mad. The girls felt a little uneasy because Olga was very big compared to her. And what can you say? The maid was bigger than most men. The heroine tried to pull herself together. Everything would be over if she retreated. She threatened the maid that she would tell her father everything that was happening here. The maid laughed loudly. She blindly believed that the girl's father would not listen to anything. She claimed that he did not care about the words of his daughter, who did not even wield a sword. Lily thought that she had had these thoughts in her head before this situation, but now everything was different. Lily grinned evilly and asked Olga why she thought so. She pointed at Eden, who was very scared when he heard his name. "Although it is a bit sloppy, isn't it cute?" the girl asked, and also boasted that it was her father who gave it to her. She whispered to the guy to play along with her a little, and if he did, then she could help him so he could escape. The guy stopped denying and simply fell silent. He understood everything. The maid stopped laughing and simply asked what it all meant. Beauty was a rare thing in their time, but the father brought this beautiful thing especially for his beloved daughter. Does Olga really still think that he is indifferent to her? He really was very handsome. Olga would hardly have thought otherwise. The maid didn't even argue, which meant she bought it. Of course, there is a possibility that the father gave it to her just on a whim, but who cares about the truth? It will just help you win with a little trick. Olga said that she hadn't seen the girl for only a few days, and she had already become so bold, smiling rudely. The woman said that it made her happy when she saw how much Lily had grown. She was holding some kind of mechanism in her hand and suggested that the heroine no longer needed it. This was the most important part of Roxy, the heart outline. The brazen woman threatened the little girl with Roxy's heart. How can she behave so meanly and childishly? Lily simply asked for the thing to be returned to her. But the woman had a condition. Only if she did not go to the owner and swear not to disturb him. Lily didn't like this condition at all. She understood that the maid was simply scared, but at first she wasn't going to agree to it. She tried to pull herself together. Even if she screamed and fought, nothing would change. She remembered all the injustices she had faced before. She just needed to quietly collect evidence and wait for the right time. In her past life, she had to wait 10 years to get her parents' inheritance back. She asked if she asked for forgiveness, the maid would return her heart, to which the old woman replied that it was possible. In her mind, the girl had already agreed to kneel down and beg, but sooner or later Olga would catch her. But suddenly the guy stopped the girl. He didn't understand what she was doing. It really outraged him. He shouted right in her face. Did she have even a drop of pride? Weren't all aristocrats arrogant? Lily almost fell, but the guy asked if she was giving up without even entering the fight. He pointed to the maid and said that even though she was an adult, this woman did not have a weapon. He advised Lily to do at least something, but she did not understand what he was talking about at all. The guy told her to look carefully and started walking towards Olga. He kicked her very hard on the leg, showing her how to do it. The girl was shocked and tried to stop him. This one was very proud of himself and said that it was as easy as pie, but such suddenness stunned Lilia. Olga screamed in pain and fell to the floor. Eden continued to ask why the girl did not resist, but immediately got down on her knees. Was it really not scary at all to die? But no one died right there. What was he talking about? But if you think about it, in the lawless northern regions, kneeling is equivalent to death. If you admit defeat and kneel, you will be killed painlessly. That's why he was so upset when she said she would kneel. But what difference does it make to him, because her life is at stake? Olga got back on her feet. She got very angry and started threatening him. The heroine protected Eden with her body and told the woman not to touch him. Eden was very touched that the heroine did this. In the future, he will have a grudge against all Sergeyevnevs. He will burn all the lands to the ground and even destroy the wall. There is no point in provoking him. And she did not want to look pathetic in his eyes. His character was not sweet from the very beginning. The maid meanly said that she thought it didn't matter if something bad happened. She had Roxy's heart in her hands. Lily was very scared. She was a very nasty woman. She asked the maid how long she thought she would remain a helpless child and threatened that she would regret it. But these words did not frighten the woman at all. The green-haired maid asked if the heroine was even sure that she would be able to grow up, since the battle for the place of the heir would soon begin. She was right. That was another reason why she needed to leave there. Sergeyevnev's swordsmanship becomes stronger when you absorb the power of those who inherit their bloodline. Upon reaching adulthood, all members of the family must enter the struggle for the place of the heir. Only one survivor is trained in the art of fencing Sergeyevnev. In their generation, it is likely that either her older brother Edward, a fencing genius who rivals their father, or her second brother Lawrence, who possesses impressive talent. One of them will become the winner and inherit Sergeyevnev's fencing skills. The losers will become fertilizer for the winner. Of course, there are exceptions to this bloodbath, Edward. Her older brother and Eloise, his twin sister. She has a weak body from birth and no talent. This ironically increases her chance of survival. Harming her sister will not bring any benefit. But the heroine is different from Eloise. She is only a mediocre person who will die as soon as the struggle for the inheritance begins. In the original, the girl survived because she learned that she was like a mana stone, but ultimately lost her mana and died because of this. The maid said that, judging by the silence, Lily understood her and told her to wait in the corner. She pushed her away with great force. She was going to teach Eden a lesson and called him scum. The heroine was afraid that she would provoke him now. She swung at him to show him what happens when you contradict an adult. But the girl pushed him away and screamed at Olga not to dare touch him. The blow fell on the pouring, which made her very scared. She thought it would be better if she hit her than Eden, as everything around her began to shine with rainbow colors. Lily opened her eyes, and it seemed to her as if something exploded. She looked at Olga, who was lying unconscious on the floor. It was completely unclear what had happened. Olga was covered in wounds and burns, but why did she look like that? A sudden explosion of rainbow debris. The girl looked at it and couldn't believe that it was the explosion of magical power that was mentioned in the original. Did she really unknowingly use magical power in response to Olga's threat? All those sparkles were her life force. How much time did she lose from this? Eden saw it all. He said in surprise that she used magic, but the heroine began to deny it all. The boy didn't understand why she was denying it, because she made that white thing explode and send that woman flying. She's a magician. The girl simply closed his mouth and said that it just seemed to him that such a little girl, how she could use magic. Only the smart guys from the academy are capable of doing this. She didn't want anyone to know about her magic, but Eden asked what kind of explosion it was if not magic. The heroine began to tell him something about static electricity. Suddenly, Eloise came into Lily's room, which left the children a little stunned. It was just another problem on her head why she decided to come now. She asked to open the door for a short while, as she found her sister's behavior a little strange, and she became worried, but no one was going to open the door for her. Olga was lying on the floor, still unconscious, and her sister clearly shouldn't have seen this. I just didn't understand the heroine's behavior. The sister should never have seen all this. The girl stood and did not understand what to do. Lily was rushing around the room, not understanding what to do, and her sister continued to knock on the door and ask if her little sister really didn't want to talk to her. She couldn't just send her sister away, especially since she was very upset because she thought that they simply didn't want to talk to her. But the girl ran to the door and said that she was here. She didn't want to be a scoundrel in her sister's eyes anymore. Lisa asked if she would open the door for her, but when she received a negative answer, she asked her to simply listen. She said that she never wanted to take her things, not even once. She was very happy that her father gave her a friend, because there are no children her age here, and she never had friends. But of course, friends cannot be given and accepted as gifts. Lily knew she had said these words in a hurry so that they wouldn't see each other, but it seemed to bother Eloise a lot. Lisa felt very sorry because she was lying in bed and could not take care of her sister. The heroine asked what her sister was apologizing for, since it was she who treated her badly. She told her sister that it was not her fault that she was sick and lying in bed, and that she did not need to apologize for it. Eloise was very pleased with this. Her gaze became more lively. She thanked her for her words, and now she's happy. The girl did not understand why she was so happy about these words, because she had worried so often. Eloise said that she would like to see her sister and talk to her more. The heroine might have wanted this too, but now it was impossible. If Olga woke up here, there would be even more problems. Lily said that if her sister came to apologize, then there was no need. She also promised that she would come to her room later, but in her thoughts, she only had one thing in mind, that the only one who should apologize was her. The sister was very happy. She also said that she would be waiting for her very much, and the heroine had a smile on her face from these sweet words of her sister. Suddenly, a cleaning of the room was organized. These shiny things were lying everywhere, which cost several days of life. They could be removed, but what to do with Olga? It was bad to think that I would have to clean everything up myself if Olga found out that it was my doing. She would tell her father about it. The girl started kicking the maid while she was unconscious, because she treated her very badly, and because of this she had to activate magic. It seemed that she was in shock and couldn't come to her senses. The girl was thinking about kicking her a couple more times while she still had the chance. Eden quietly came up behind her and asked if she was dead, and offered to teach the heroine how to dispose of corpses. But the maid was still breathing, and Lily was afraid of Eden. He continued to talk about how magic had gotten into her, but the heroine told him to watch his words, since she had no idea how to use it. The guy said that she is strange. Why does she say that she can't do it, although she just did it? Magic is a very rare ability. The problem is that this precious magic is sucking the life force out of the girl, but it will be difficult to understand her situation. She told him to listen carefully. This place is crazy. The head maid doesn't know her place. And he hasn't yet seen her brothers, who are even crazier. But what if in this crazy place they decide that she is a genius magician and send the girl to the academy, as the guy thinks? Will he be able to escape? So for his own sake, he must keep all this a secret, even if people like Olga make fun of him. No one will help him, the heroine threatened. Eden simply agreed to her terms and said that she was not a mage. At least he has a drop of common sense, which really calmed Lily down, since in the original he was shown as an unfeeling psychopath. Roxy's scheme was successfully taken out of Olga's hands, and the heroine thought that if she could deceive her, then everything would be fine. Suddenly, the girl realized something and came up with a good way. She took the hammer in her hands. Eden saw all this and did not understand what she was doing. The girl swung, saying that this was the best way out now. Suddenly, Olga woke up. She had a very bad headache, and Eden and Lily were lying in front of her, also unconscious. The maid tried to come to her senses and understand what had happened. The last thing she remembered was trying to hit the girl. What had she done? She wouldn't just let it go. She needed to report this to the owner immediately. But she was passing by the mirror and for some reason was very surprised. She looked at her head, where there was a lump without hair, and fell into despair. She stepped on some pieces of iron and got very angry, because she thought that it was because of this scrap metal that she was in this condition. She screamed that all this was because of this wretched toy, and began to trample everything that was under her feet. She didn't know what to do with all this. Lily just pretended that she was unconscious, and was quietly glad that the maid had fallen for it, and couldn't even imagine that it was her doing. The girl told Eden to pretend he was unconscious. Although he didn't like it, he agreed. Olga began to leave, grumbling under her breath that she should have gotten rid of this trouble earlier. The girl scattered these details to pretend that it was because of them. They were also valuable. But fortunately, Roxy's heart was safe. The heroine and the guy were lying on the floor after Olga left. Eden asked if everything was over. The day went well. The next morning, the girl yawned after sleeping. She thought about how hard yesterday had been, and she needed to come up with a plan to free Eden as soon as possible. Yesterday had been very difficult, but she couldn't avoid her sister anymore. She was thinking about whether Eden would survive if he was released outside the castle. The sounds of training could be heard around. This made the heroine very angry. It bothered her, even though the hunting festival was coming soon. But wasn't it too much to train so early? The annual hunting festival is a big event where knights from all over the world participate. People from different places gather there. Before, the heroine got there using a gate, not a carriage. She was wondering what would happen if she used the gate to help one escape, when suddenly her brother Lawrence asked what she was doing. Wasn't it breakfast time? He was just about to look for her. Everything turned out better than expected, the guy said. He looked menacingly at his sister and asked if she wanted to harm Eloise. The heroine turned her head away and said that she didn't mean to. Lawrence reminded her how she climbed a tree to mock her sister, but she fell from there and couldn't mock her. In the end, no one was scolded because Lily fell herself. In the past, the girl would have forgotten that she was about to pour cold water on her sister and would have started throwing plates, asking why her brother wasn't worried about her. But not now. Lawrence said that he had made it clear to her last time that if she tried to hurt her sister again, he would not let it go unpunished. This time, she would not get away with it. Lily said she admitted she acted like trash and said she apologized to her sister yesterday. The guy didn't believe her and asked what she was up to, since she was pretending to apologize. This really angered the heroine. Why can't she just accept another person's apology? Suddenly, a servant came in and said that the Duke, that is their father, had returned. They were very surprised by this because only one day had passed since he went hunting for the dead dragon. They couldn't say anything about the fact that he killed a dead dragon in just one day. The same emotionless, fearless man cut down the dead dragon with his sword. He told his servants that he had separated the wings and tail and ordered technicians to be called in to deal with the rest. Lawrence said that it was expected of his father that he dealt with a dead dragon in just one day. Lily thought it was simply amazing. They say that every part of the dragon monster, from the wings to the tendons, is worth a fortune. The girl couldn't even imagine how much it cost in its entirety. She started drooling at the thought, and her brother told her about it. It is said that the dragon's heart has explosive power. If Roxy could use the dragon's heart as a source of power, it would be just awesome. The girl really wanted this heart, and at that time her father looked out the window where they were standing. Lily noticed this and didn't understand what was going on. The sister hid behind her brother, saying that the sun had simply shone into her eye. But she was certain that she had just met her father's gaze. But maybe it just seemed unclear. The heroine sat and ate. And in her thoughts, she had mistakenly thought that her father and Edward, obsessed with battles, would rush in a hurry to the next battlefield. Well, unexpectedly, a family dinner happened. The girl sat at the table and tried to understand what her father was thinking. But suddenly he began to speak. There was a reason why he called everyone. He wanted to evaluate the results of the children's training. Lily was shocked by this. She was not prepared at all. And why did it happen so suddenly? There is a tradition according to which candidates for the place of the heir show the result of training to the current head once a year, but now is not the time. The girl raised her hand and told her father that they had another month to train. Suddenly, Lawrence told his sister that a month of training would not turn a nobody into someone worthwhile, and he took it out on her again. A place of tedious ceremonies, Edward suggested. They could have a fight for the place of the heir. He didn't think that a few years would change anything. Lily was very scared by this, because if a fight for the place of the heir took place now, it would be the same as saying that she would be killed on the spot, like her brother Lawrence. She was very angry with her older brother and looked at him while he ate. Suddenly, Edward's father told him that the ceremony was mandatory. Until his brother and sister came of age, there would be no battle for the place of heir. The brother apologized for his intemperance and bowed to his father. The heroine thought that today her father's stubbornness was good for everyone. Suddenly, the older brother started saying that he mentioned it because a couple of bugs appeared in their family that only eat. He meant the brother and sister. Lily didn't say anything because she didn't want to fight directly, but she understood the pressure Lawrence was feeling right now. The thought of meeting a monster in the form of Edward in the future becomes more and more terrifying with each passing day. But now was not the time to worry about anyone else. The girl decided to ask her father what the test would consist of. The Sergeyevnev family is famous for their swordsmanship. But fortunately, the test is not only about swordsmanship, it can be passed using your powers of magic or magical engineering. This was very good for Lily, because she does not know how to wield a sword at all, and she cannot use magic. Roxy was still not ready. All that was left was to hope that it would be something simple. Father said he would tell me the details before the test itself. His gaze was as cold as usual. He told everyone to come to the training ground in an hour. Everyone was very surprised. Lily immediately ran to her room because an hour is very little time, and she had to have time to think of something. She knew something was wrong when he suddenly called everyone to dinner. She planned to at least improve Roxy a little during this time. And all this happened after Olga broke her latest version. She began to sort through all the parts in the hope of finding something. But Eden was calling her. The girl didn't react to him in any way. She was too busy improving Roxy. Eden got tired of calling her unsuccessfully. He picked up the wrench, dropped it, and called Lily not even by her name, but by her mistress. She finally paid attention to him and apologized because she was a little busy right now. Eden was not in the mood, because he had been calling her for a very long time, and he did not care whether she was busy or not. As soon as the heroine saw him, she thought that after bathing, he really looked like the main character. But suddenly it dawned on her. He called her mistress, but she didn't really like it, and she asked him not to call her that because it was strange. But it didn't matter now. Eden didn't like the feeling that he was being treated as a doll that could be kept around at all times. Lily just asked him, puzzled, what he was talking about. But she promised that she would let him go, and she left him alone all day. He again looked like a cat who was angry. She laughed because she realized that he called her mistress out of concern while playing a game. She didn't think about it. But Eden's personality is like a kitten with disheveled fur. She thinks about it. The developers really went overboard. They gave the hero such a terrifying trait as a psychopath. It wasn't even a character trait. It was a curse that prevents him from experiencing emotions from birth. Seeing him so emotional, it seemed like the curse hadn't started working yet. The boy was yelling at her that she was hiding in her thoughts again. But his curse was not the most important thing now. She told him to calm down because it was not so easy to get him out of here. This place is so dangerous that even carriages rarely go here. If she told someone to come here, they would charge 10 times the amount. The guy was very upset, and it was obvious. But Lily did not leave him in that state and consoled him, because she has a plan and now she is doing everything for him. So he needs to be patient a little longer. "Well?" the guy sadly asked. "If you are so difficult, why would she even go so far for him?" But it wasn't free. When he grew up, he would have to repay her. The guy looked at her in surprise. He did not understand the words about him being able to grow up. She said that she could predict fate and that he was destined for success. So later, he would simply repay her, and necessarily in cash, the girl went on to improve her invention. Eden stood there confused with nothing more to say. He began to burden himself with questions about whether he could really grow up. But in the end, he simply came to the conclusion that Lily was a liar. He sat on the floor while the girl improved her invention and thought that in the end, she was the same as the other nobles. But suddenly he heard someone talking about some kind of battle. The maids were walking down the corridor and talking about Lillian. They were wondering whether the heroine would take part in the battle. But if she doesn't participate, then the leader will immediately get rid of her. They remembered last year, and how she tore her hair and cried because she couldn't even catch a weak monster. They even said that she might very well die this time, which scared Eden. At the central training ground, Sergeyevnev, everyone was already assembled. Head butler Jarito said that this test that the master is conducting will not be easy. There was a stone there with a very beautiful sword stuck into it, and it would be the test. Everyone was very serious. But what he was going to test with this sword was on Lily's mind. This sword is meant for hunting monsters and was found on Earth where a dragon was killed. The owner specially brought it here along with the stone for today's test. The elder brother asked if they just needed to pull out the sword and if there was any way to do it, but they couldn't just break the stone. They had to pull it out by pure force. For the elder brother, it was a piece of cake, but for the younger brother and sister, pulling out the sword with sheer force seemed like a very big challenge. Well, then my father came and said to try to do it since Edward was so brave. No one even noticed when he managed to come. But the father said let him try, but only if he could do it. He was clearly pleased that he would now see the results of his children. The test was incredibly stupid for Lily. She tried to prepare as best as possible. But as it turned out, only pure brute force was needed. So all her preparation went down the drain. Lawrence told his father that he would go first, but he looked scared. Lawrence is certainly strong, but he is only 13 years old. No one knew if Lawrence could do it, but he tried very hard to pull out the sword. When she first tried to pull out the sword, the stone began to crack and the sword moved slightly. Lily noticed this and was shocked. At this rate, Lawrence will win this year, she thought. But her older brother looked at the picture without surprise. Lawrence tried to pull out the sword again, but he was unsuccessful. He fell to his knees in front of the sword, apparently having spent all the strength he had. It seems that this was too much for the younger brother. The father saw all this and ordered to stop. The brother was sure that he could do it, but his father told him not to waste his energy on a hopeless task. Next came the older brother, Edward. He approached the stone with a sword and said that it was pathetic for a simple stone. As soon as the sister saw that he was leaving, she decided that this was her chance and began to take something out of her bag. She called Edward and called him brother. In her past life, she realized that connections are much more important than talent and handed her brother a handkerchief. She said it would be terrible if his hand slipped and he got hurt, but she also began to flatter him that he was strong and that this would most likely not happen to him. But the brother reacted very rudely and called it a senseless prank and also pushed his sister on the arm. She didn't expect to succeed the first time. She simply picked up the handkerchief from the floor. Little brother Lawrence was upset when he saw this. She had never called him brother before. Lily didn't understand this reaction. Was he jealous? Most likely not. The servant said that it was time to continue the test. Everyone looked at Edward and wondered if he would be able to pull out the sword. He began to pull out the sword with one hand. Huge cracks appeared on the stone. Lawrence and Lillian looked at this with surprise and fear. The difference is only 1 year, but the gap in strength between Edward and Lawrence is simply enormous. He continued in the same spirit and coped with this task. He raised his sword above his head with pride. Everyone shouted and rejoiced for him. But the brother himself was not very happy because he had to use both hands for such nonsense. The father congratulated him and told him to give up the sword. Lily thought that since Edward had managed to get the sword, she probably wouldn't need to participate. The father abruptly thrust the sword back into the stone. The heroine did not even have time to think whether she should feel relief or fear. The stone crashed back into the stone. Lawrence and Lily were shocked to see how their father could put the sword back in. The father simply calmly said that it was now Lillian's turn, but she was scared. Everyone looked at her while the heroine just stood there and couldn't believe that it was her turn. But she couldn't even get close to Edward or Lawrence. She would lose again this year. The heroine stood with these thoughts. Her father knew she wasn't even going to try and said that she was a disappointment. As always, the test was already over. But Lily came to this stone at night and looked at it with the thought that even if she trained her strength, she still would not be able to pull it out. She thought she was hopeless when it came to fencing. How could they take it out and then put it back in? Were they monsters? But suddenly it dawned on her why she was thinking about using only brute force against him, when she could pull him out with her strength. Since it came to this, maybe just try, she took Roxy and thought that from the very beginning, the power was not physical but magical engineering. If the laws of physics here are the same as on Earth, she can use distance as a source of power. She was sure it would work. She gave 2 commands to not let go of the sword's hilt even if it broke, and the second to maintain the length until Lily stopped her. She would be able to pull the sword out using Roxy as a lever. She ordered Roxy to fly to her. She really was a huge lever. Roxy struggled mightily to complete this task. Suddenly, the sword flew out along with a piece of stone, which meant that everything worked. The girl was very happy that the laws of physics here were the same as on Earth, and she finally succeeded. She ordered Roxy to return to her original form. But suddenly, someone grabbed the sword. Lillian looked and her eyes widened in surprise. It was Edward, her older brother. Lily didn't understand why Edward was here. He asked what that horrible thing was, pointing at Roxy, and kicked her hard. Lilia screamed at her brother because of what he did. He pointed the knife at her throat and asked since when some creature had been parasitizing Lillian's body. This, to put it mildly, frightened the heroine. She asked what he was talking about, but she had something else in mind. He couldn't know who she was, but he found it strange how she called him the last time. No doubt the girl was scared because of the test. And in the end, she was captured by the spirit of some monster. He was addressing her. But Lily didn't understand why he suddenly started talking about the spirit of the monster. Did he really think that Lillian, that is she, was absorbed by the spirit of the monster? Although she is not the monster Edward speaks of, it is no wonder that he thought so. Who could ever imagine that she would change, since she would remember her past life in just 1 day, with only a slight change in her behavior? He immediately suspected that someone had possessed her. Not only is he monstrously strong, but he is also frighteningly insightful. But the heroine shouted at him not to nitpick over trifles. He didn't like that she got the sword with Roxy's help. But what the brother asked was that this ugly thing is Roxy. He said that it was not important for him to communicate with the monster, but even if you tried to explain the laws of physics to him, he still would not understand. But he swung his sword at the heroine, and she closed her eyes, thinking that she was about to die. But suddenly Eden appeared and kicked Edward on the hand that held the sword. He flew to the side, and his brother did not understand what happened. Lily hid behind the guy who was shouting at her to come to her senses. But what was he doing here? She asked him not to leave the room. "It doesn't matter now," the guy said, "because she just stood there like a pillar. Well, she's not as strong as her brother Edward, who in turn began to come to his senses." He asked who the hell this kid was, at which point the heroine remembered that Edward was still here. Eden got angry at being called a jerk and started getting mad at Lily's brother. The boy said that he could easily deal with someone like him, while Lily shouted at him what he was doing. But suddenly Eden felt ill and Lily became worried. The brother told the heroine that she was using different methods, but the girl protected Eden so that her brother would not touch him. At this time, someone was talking in Eden's head about whether he wanted to risk his life for the sake of an aristocratic girl, because she wouldn't even bat an eyelash if he died instead of her. But the guy tried to calm this voice in his head. The argument continued in Eden's head for a long time. The first color the boy remembered was red, and the sounds he first heard were the screams of people being devoured by monsters. He had no memory at all of how he survived in such an environment. He ate monsters. People around him were scared of him because of his behavior. After he ate a monster out of hunger, all the people started throwing stones at him and calling him a cursed child. There were days when he was chased not by monsters, but by people. Everywhere he felt like he was in hell. But what was much more terrible than monsters or people was the whisper that followed him everywhere. For someone like him, thoughts about the future were an unaffordable luxury. But suddenly he remembered the words of Lillian, who told him that he would repay her when he grew up, and that a great future awaited him, and how she would help him escape from the castle. The voice in his head was telling him that there was no such place, and that he believed some nonsense that was being told to him. Eden tried to calm the voice. The voice said that no matter how hard he tried to run away somewhere, he couldn't escape his thoughts. The guy couldn't stand it and screamed. Suddenly, someone started calling him, which caused him to come out of his thoughts into reality. It was Lily. She was worried because the guy suddenly passed out. She was going to hold her brother back so he could get back to the room. Edward said they were two ragamuffins who were always causing trouble. But Lily continued to defend her friend and called her brother trash. She screamed that neither she nor Eden were trash or monsters, and no one was allowed to call them that. But the brother didn't believe that she was his sister. He didn't believe that such a stupid girl could cope with the test that even Lawrence failed, especially using only his mind. He said that she would have to prove that she was not a monster, but there was only one way to see the blood. Monsters have blue blood, and humans have red blood. Only in this case will he believe her. One way or another, Edward will still hurt her. But suddenly someone came and asked what they were all doing here. Of course, everyone paid attention. It was my sister. It was unclear what she was doing there, but she just wanted to congratulate me on finishing the annual test. She woke up late because she felt unwell and asked if the test was finished yet. Lily immediately grabbed Eden and buried him in her shoulders so that he wouldn't see her, but her sister recognized the boy. Brother told Lillian to give it to him. He looked very scary. The heroine screamed that neither her sister nor her brother should be interested in her doll, only she could play with it. Her brother looked at her menacingly with his white eyes and reminded her that he had told her to give it to him. The girl noticed how his gaze changed. She could not move because of his murderous intent. Her brother asked why she needed someone whose origin was unknown. What if he was infectious? He also reminded her that, at the end of the day, her body is his food, and he doesn't want her to be mistreated. The word food really bothered the heroine. It wasn't enough for him to treat her like a monster. He also considered Eden a microbe. She didn't know why Edward was so interested in Eden, but one thing was clear: he wasn't in a state to talk normally right now. She said that Eden still belonged only to her. The heroine ordered Roxy to go to her. The bird flew straight towards her brother's back along with the stone. She refused to take his bad behavior lightly when Edward kicked Roxy, sending her flying and getting stuck in a rock. But she did not cancel the order not to let go, even if the mechanism breaks, and now the brother Stone and she are standing in a straight line. The brother turned back because he noticed something was wrong. The rock and Roxy flew straight into his face. It was a perfect hit. He was lying on the floor on his knees and trying to get up. In just a split second, he managed to protect himself with an aura. It wasn't that easy to deal with him. But it didn't matter. Now they needed to take advantage of the chance to escape. Eden screamed for the heroine to put him back, but they had to get out of here quickly. Suddenly, in a hurry, the girl crashed into someone. She and her friend fell to the ground. Suddenly, fragments of her magic began to fall from under the girl's hand. This was a critical moment, but it was only after some time that she noticed the magic fragments. Did she really unknowingly introduce magic into Roxy? The shard is so small that even she barely noticed it. She hopes Edward won't find out. Suddenly, she was addressed as a lady. The servant said that she needed to go with him, as the Duke was waiting for her. The girl was very surprised that her father called her right now, but Giretto confirmed it. The heroine was very scared, as it was a personal conversation with her father before. She would have been terribly scared and tried to avoid it at any cost. But now she was glad that her father called her. This was the perfect time to escape, and a chance to show him Roxy. She was going to gain recognition as a magical engineer and get money for her projects. She told Eden to wait quietly outside the door until she spoke to her father, to which the boy replied that she should mind her own business. Already in her father's office, the heroine thought that he had called her into the training room or office. But he called her into the bathroom, and her father finally waited for Lillian to arrive. He said he heard how she was able to pull out the sword. He already received the report. He asked menacingly what he meant by this, that she immediately gave in to him. But when he left, she secretly took the test. He put a lot of pressure on the heroine, but she tried to calm down and not get nervous. She finished testing Roxy's ability, so she needed to show her father her skills properly. She said that she thought she could pull out the sword in her own way, but she didn't know what kind of power exactly she needed to use in the test, so she quietly passed it herself. She showed her invention to her father and said that she was able to pass the test thanks to Roxy's help. This is her first magical engineering project. Father was, to put it mildly, surprised because it was very stupid. At first glance, this may seem like a lie, but it is possible if you use the laws of nature, the heroine explained. At her command, Roxy can expand and contract if you read the ratio between the distance from the fulcrum to the point of application of force and the distance from the point of impact and the fulcrum. But she stopped in her explanation. The father and the servant did not understand anything, and she decided not to explain anything anymore. She became excited again and started talking about something that no one asked about. But that's not the point. What's important is that having pulled the sword out of the stone with Roxy's help, it was just the beginning. She will become the best in magical engineering. Even though she had no talent for fencing, she was determined to prove that she could be useful to the family. The father didn't know what to answer to this and simply remained silent. Then only when he began to say that tools were only cowardly means for weak losers, she wanted to say that she was ready to put her life on the line for this useless trash, asked her father. Well, Lily admitted that she had no talent for fencing, and no matter how much she trained, she would never reach Lawrence's level, let alone Edward's. So she wants to use everything she can to pave her own way. She doesn't want to fight a hopeless battle. Even if she is despised as a loser, it is better than a meaningless death. Father simply said that she was as pathetic as ever. It seemed too much to expect understanding and support from her father. He became the head of Sergevnev, and from birth he possessed a monstrous talent for fencing. All his life he single-handedly defended the empire only with the help of this power. But the girl tried not to get too upset and still turned to her father. Times are changing, and someday the wind of change will blow in magical engineering. And when it comes, those who cannot accept the tools will become losers. The girl was sure of it. Although it was not done officially, her father will consider that she passed the test and, according to the rules, will receive a reward. The Duke suggested that Jareth give his daughter 100 gold coins, and she was delighted that she had succeeded and would be able to continue her research. Her eyes sparkled with happiness, as if she remembered something else. She reminded her father of the dead dragon and asked if she could have his heart. This greatly surprised the servant, but the father did not even bat an eyelid. The heroine stopped abruptly, because she thought that she had asked for too much, and hoped that he would not take away the 100 gold pieces that he was going to give her. The heart of a dead dragon, an incredible source of energy, Father just smiled. He ordered the servant to give the heart to this young lady. The servant tried to stop him. The heroine was very happy. She, embarrassed, thanked her father very much for such a gift. To which he replied that he was embarrassed by the gratitude, but now they would see everything. A reward that she couldn't handle would be a punishment for her. So before he gave it to her, he wanted to check if she was worthy of it. But this seemed to be another test, which surprised the lady. The servant opened the box containing the dead heart, which was black as death. As soon as the girl looked at him, she immediately got lost in her thoughts. A memory immediately came to her mind of someone yelling at her, criticizing her for scratching her cousin's face. It was her aunt. Shin Yuna tried to explain everything, but no one wanted to listen to her. They shouted at her that she was very difficult to love. Even all her classmates despised her. Everyone kept telling her that she wouldn't be able to go to college unless she got a scholarship, so she studies like her life depends on it. But the girl walked with the thought that everything was fine. She didn't care much about it. She resigned herself to the fact that she was destined to be alone. Suddenly, a scene flashes through her memories of her playing the Demon Lord's companion, the very game in which she is now the main character. But suddenly her father woke her up. She was deep in her nightmares. The girl woke up in tears and was even happy to see her father. A second ago, she was looking at the heart of a dead dragon and did not understand what had happened to her. A dead dragon draws negative emotions out of a person and makes him see nightmares. He causes despair in the enemy using powerful illusions and hypnosis. The dark energy remained in his heart even after death, which is why the heart of a dead dragon is so dangerous, his father explained. He said that it seemed like it was too much for his daughter and he refused to give her the heart. So that's why she saw those tormenting nightmares from her past life. It was an illusion created by the dark energy of the dead dragon's heart. Well, I got up and dusted myself off, and I couldn't allow myself to give up because of some nightmares. She told her father that she was perfectly fine. She asked him once again to give her his heart as he had promised. The Duke said that she wanted something that she couldn't even handle. It was very reckless. He also understood that Lily herself knew this very well. But she said she could handle it and took responsibility for all the risks. The father said nothing when his daughter snatched the box containing the dead heart. The next time they met, the heroine promised to do everything so that he would not consider it a waste of time. She was going to go quickly before her father said anything. She told him to look forward to this moment. The girl slipped out the door, leaving the servant and her father in silence. Giretto asked what they should do. Maybe introduce someone to look after the lady, but the Duke said that it was not worth it. If she made a decision, then he is also responsible for the result. The servant said that he understood and also reminded about the conflict between Edward and Lily. He recalled Eden, who suddenly stood in front of the lady to protect her. The Duke said it seemed like an attachment had formed between them. He was going to die soon anyway. That's why he took him with him. Some guys were discussing that Lillian had passed the test and that she had received an award, and they also saw her enter the room with a fancy box in her hands. Some guy suggested that the others take some gold from her, since she never gave them any tips, and everyone supported him. They clearly didn't like the heroine and considered her stupid since, in their opinion, she wouldn't even notice the loss. And in place of the gold, they wanted to leave her a dead rat. They thought this was a very funny act. Everyone laughed. This all happened at night when Lily was already asleep. The guys broke into her room and saw the box, saying that at first glance it looked expensive. The guy who came up with the idea started opening the box. But instead of gold, the heart of a dead dragon was waiting for them there, and as soon as he saw it, he immediately felt ill. He asked for help. His name was Mason. But suddenly, Eden appeared and grabbed the already suffering guy by the throat. Everyone knew Eden as Lillian's doll. They yelled at him to let their friend go. He, of course, let it go, but simply by throwing it at the other guys. He also didn't hesitate and hit the other guy. All this noise naturally woke Lily up. At first, she didn't understand what the noise was, but as soon as she came to consciousness, she heard human screams and saw Eden. She rushed at them with a pillow, screaming about what they were even doing in her room. But she was going to attack them, but everyone was already lying on the floor and asking her for help, because Eden had beaten them. They were the guys who bullied her. She knew this was coming. They came here to mess with her, but they ended up running into Eden. Eden was still holding him and hitting him, which scared the lady a lot. She touched his shoulder and asked him to stop because he could kill him. But the guy removed her hand, as if he was afraid of her touch. Of course, he had been sensitive before, but not to the extent that had happened to him during this time. As if he was afraid of other people's touches, the guy looked very distant. Lillian asked him to take off his shirt, which made the guy's eyes widen, and he could only squeeze out a question, why? The girl started to force him to take off his shirt. While the guy resisted, she was just going to take a look. Lily rushed at the guy, thereby catching him. She unbuttoned his shirt even though he didn't want it. She saw what she expected. There was some kind of magic in his chest. It was a curse. The curse was located right next to Eden's heart and apparently affected him. Although in the future he will become an obsessed protagonist who throws everyone into prison. But now he is just a child. The girl touched him and asked if he was in much pain. But the guy said that it wasn't really anything. It just happened when he moved too much. He would get better soon. But he was all sweaty. The heroine didn't understand what to do. Even the doctor couldn't do anything, since it was a curse. But she couldn't just leave him in that state. Then suddenly it dawned on her. Eden Van Chekhov, born October 24th, 2063, died March 3rd, 2074. In The Companion of the Demon Lord, officially, Eden died at the age of 12. It was such a stupid mistake that it caused a stir, but it was never corrected. In the end, all the fans just shrugged their shoulders, as they thought it was a typo in the main character's age. But what if this death was not related to the body, but to the soul? Today is exactly the 3rd of March, 2074, the day of the death of Eden's soul. The game said that from a young age, this one was callous and cruel, but the Eden she knew showed anger, irritation, and even tried to protect the heroine. Lily's memory flashed back to moments when she hid behind her friend, who was trying to protect her, and how he was angry and irritated. If he loses his self because of the curse, then it makes sense why he is like that in the original. Luckily, his emotions were still intact. The heroine had a chance to help him, even if not today, but eventually the curse would consume him, which meant she needed to deal with this problem before it was too late. She turned to the guy and said that she would break his curse. This one just smiled and asked if she really thought he hadn't even tried to do that. How could she deal with something that even the church hadn't been able to solve? She immediately became sad, because he was right. There are currently no priests in the church with enough holy power to remove the curse. The church is already rotten to the core. She just needed to calm down and think. She didn't have holy powers or healing abilities, but she did have knowledge from her past life and Lillian's magic. Come to think of it, when she was little, she secretly brought the first version of Roxy into the room and raised her. One day the servants fed her poison. The poison was not strong, but for the little bird it was fatal. Watching Roxy grow weaker every day caused great sadness, as she could die soon, so the girl added poison to the maid's bread to take revenge. But when she turned away, Roxy ate the bread. The heroine thought that now Roxy would die and cried out all the tears she had. But after that day, Roxy became stronger, which was shocking. Now that she has the knowledge of Shin Yuna, she realizes that she can get rid of poison with poison, a method often used in modern medicine to treat cancer or poisoning. The curse of dark magic is a product of darkness. Holy power that removes the curse and comes down from the light. If you multiply a negative value by a positive, you get negative. But if you multiply a negative by a negative, you get positive. Replace the negative number in this formula with poison, and then replace the poison with curse, and maybe she can use the curse to get rid of curses. Luckily, she has what can be called the essence of dark energy. The girl approached Eden, who was putting on his shirt, looking dissatisfied. In a very frightening manner, Lily asked him if he minded if she performed a little experiment on him. The guy clearly didn't like this at all. He shouted that she was talking nonsense, but the girl couldn't be stopped. She started telling him about poisons, negative to negative, but the guy didn't understand what she was talking about. But she later said that explaining the principle was a waste of their time, shouting that he was not in the mood for games. Well, he understood perfectly well that they couldn't just leave all this like that. At this rate, he will soon lose consciousness, and he will not have the strength to resist, so it is better for him to cooperate with the heroine while he is still conscious. Eden didn't know what to say and simply remained silent. It was raining outside. It was already late evening, and in one of the rooms of the palace, an experiment was taking place. The guy lay down naked on the bed, and the heroine asked him if he was ready. She was sure she was right, but it was just a theory. She was still afraid that something would go wrong. She uses magic to save the guy at any cost. The girl opened the box with the dead heart. She immediately began to be tormented by nightmares and hallucinations, voices of people from a past life, who shouted at her that she was a useless piece of trash, that there was nothing attractive about her, that even if her parents were alive, they would still abandon her. But she tried her best to cope with it. The guy noticed it and asked if she was okay. She was in a lot of pain. It felt like she was going crazy, but the voices kept coming. They took her in because she was a member of the family. Others in their place would have abandoned her. But for Eden's sake, she must endure it. The girl, through all her suffering, took the heart and applied it directly to the guy's curse. All these nightmares were not going to stop. Through tears, she continued. These nightmares were not new to her. She screamed at him to stay conscious and not pass out, even though he was in pain too. If he couldn't stay conscious, then he just needed to focus on something else. It was almost the end of the experiment. The guy was almost passing out, but he saw Lily in front of him. She looked like she was about to die, but why was she so desperately trying to save him? The boy's eyes showed no signs of consciousness. He was in so much pain. Suddenly, a powerful explosion of dark energy occurred in their room. Eden couldn't take it anymore and screamed in pain. The heroine noticed that there was a very powerful flow of dark energy, Did everything really work out? Once it was over, Lily asked Eden if he was okay. She immediately went to check what was wrong with the curse. The guy's chest was absolutely clean. The guy was unconscious, completely exhausted, but very handsome. Even the trace of the curse completely disappeared, which undoubtedly surprised the heroine. She was very happy that her theory worked and that she was able to help her friend. In the end, magic is also an ordinary object. As long as you can put it into a variable, even complex and powerful magic can be controlled with mathematical calculations. But for Lillian, this also did not pass without a trace. She began to turn off. She told Eden, who lay unconscious, that since she had gone so far for him when he succeeded, he should not forget her, and fell asleep next to him. Olga tried to hide her bump with her hair, but hair will never grow in that place again. She ordered that the heroine not be fed for 3 days, so that she should cry and regret her mistakes, or so the head maid thought. Since that day, she has not been given a crumb of food, so she must be starving to death. Now she will desperately wait, clutching at her empty stomach. Even rotten food that only looks edible will be a blessing for her. The Duke had just left on another expedition, so Olga could punish the girl again, or so she thought. As soon as she entered her room, she immediately angrily asked for forgiveness for forgetting to bring her food. She hoped that she would beg her for forgiveness, with tears in her eyes. But as soon as Lily noticed her, she simply asked again what she said, and practically didn't react at all. She didn't need food from her since she had already eaten, which of course surprised the maid. But no one was preparing food for her in the kitchen. How could this have happened? There was a plate with bones near the table. She didn't understand how this was possible, since she had given a special order in the kitchen not to cook for her. As soon as she looked up, she immediately noticed Eden lying on Lillian's bed. She couldn't understand how the toy dared to sleep on the aristocrat's bed, and could it be that it was this worthless creature that brought her food? She immediately began to say that the thing brought from outside had such disgusting manners, and was also going to punish him. But Lily wasn't going to stand for it and ordered Roxy to bite her. The bird immediately pounced on this evil woman and began to bite her on the back of the head. The heroine got really angry and started talking about how she irritated her, but she said she was fine. She also asked if the maid had been sick recently, since she had passed her final exam and no longer needed to bother bringing her food. Olga screamed that she understood everything and asked to take Roxy away from her because she did not leave her alone. Lily continued that from now on her hobby, which she considered trash, would be fully supported by her father, and she was currently working on showing him something. So why doesn't Olga stop resisting and leave? The girl didn't sleep all night, and now she's in a bad mood. The lady couldn't hold back and shouted at Olga. If she ignored her again, she had no idea what she would do to her. She was already on edge since he still hadn't woken up, and she didn't want to tolerate Olga's type of interference any longer. The maid didn't understand what had happened to Lily, but she didn't want to believe in the Duke's support either, because she didn't believe that she had passed the test, that even the master's second son had failed. She had just accidentally pulled out the sword using a cheap trick, or so Olga thought. Lillian started teasing her and saying the same thing she had just told her. With such thoughts, she probably thought that the lady would beg the maid for forgiveness and ask for scraps. She also asked if the maid had just shown disrespect to her father, the Duke. Since Olga doesn't believe her, she will show Olga the reward she received for passing the test. The girl went for the box and brought it back. It was the heart of a dead dragon. A dark aura was still emanating from this box. The maid's eyes widened. She couldn't believe that this was the heart of a dead dragon. How could they give something so valuable to the daughter of a criminal? She rushed at the girl as she could not believe it, and snatched the box from her hands. The box fell, and the heart fell out of it. Olga said that it seemed that the lady had not even learned to lie properly, but she didn't even have time to finish her sentence. The hypnosis of the dead dragon's heart immediately began to affect her, and she began to hallucinate. She was in a lot of pain, just like everyone else. She felt like she was going to go crazy, but she could not bear such suffering and fell unconscious. She switched off in literally a second. People who like to make fun of others and end up with the weakest nerves. Lily began to pick up Roxy in the heart. She thought it would be useless since she used it to remove Eden's curse, but luckily it repairs itself. She also looked at Olga and thought that it was time to remove the annoying trash. She screamed at the top of her lungs for Olga to go to hell. The girl continued to do her own thing and at the same time called someone for help. But usually if there is noise from her room, then only after some time does someone come to her. Well, suddenly, someone knocked on her door and asked what happened. The girl immediately got up and ran to open it. It was a maid who had apparently only recently been hired, and as soon as she saw the head maid, she was very scared. Lilia remembered her, but she had never seen her in Olga's group before. She asked her name. The maid's name was Sasha. She admitted that I had only recently been accepted. She had not yet been drawn into Olga's group. She doesn't seem to have gotten into the family atmosphere or how Lily is treated. Her face looks gentle and her personality seems a little timid. It was just perfect for the heroine. It seems that the head maid's health has deteriorated recently. She fainted, the new maid's girl said. Lillian showed the maid the food that the head maid had brought her. It was even impossible to eat, and began to lie about Olga's poor health. Sasha didn't know that the head maid's condition was so bad, but to be honest, it caused so many problems. She was the only one in the entire estate who looked after the poor girl. The lady decided to win someone over and put some jewelry into the maid's hand. She invited Sasha to become her personal maid. The girl was very excited about this. It was a great honor for her. But for this, she needs the permission of the head butler. The lady interrupted her. Everyone must have heard that she passed the test and received a reward from her father. She is the daughter of this house, which is trusted by her father, so if she wants this, she does not need the butler's permission. She did not stop talking and said that she was now counting on the maid. After the heroine's explanation, everything seemed quite logical. The maid even thought that she was much better than the rumors said, so Sasha simply agreed. She looked rather surprised in Lily's opinion, but that was a good thing. She certainly won't regret choosing her side. The girl asked to call someone to help Olga and then bring fresh food, and also explained to everyone that Olga felt bad. She also hoped that Sasha had a big mouth and rumors would spread quickly. Only thanks to the test, the girl was able to change her personal maid so easily. All the maids in this house are afraid of Olga, so everyone avoids communicating with the girl. If she wants to survive in this ruthless house, she needs a strength that no one can underestimate. After that day, the lady devoted herself to creating new inventions, and Sasha was there to prepare for the presentation of the new invention. When her father returned, the girl pointed to something to the maid and told her to take it. It is a machine that uses centrifugal force to rotate objects, but for a girl it was useless. But if I put the laundry to wash and add soapy water, it will be useful. When the maid left with this miracle machine, all the maids were perplexed. They discouraged Sasha from using this invention because they thought that Lily just wanted to make her life difficult. They claimed that everyone knew that Lily was doing useless things and that the maid had actually grabbed the rotten rope. But sometime later they looked at the things washed by this machine and were shocked. They would wring for ages until their hands fell off. They did not believe that the lady really did it. Sasha said that this device uses a small mana stone. As long as the mana stone is in order, it will work. All the maids were happy. They asked Sasha if they could use it, and she said they probably could. They also decided to try another invention that the heroine gave them. She called it a pressure water pump and told me to put the dishes inside. After a while, all the maids were shocked that all the dirt had been completely washed off the dishes. They began to ask Sasha if the mistress had any other devices that she needed to get rid of. But now she was focused on new research, so if she threw out anything else, Sasha would definitely bring it. All the so-called failures of the lady slowly began to gain notoriety in the estate, especially among the maids. Lily saw all this through the window and was very happy that her invention was appreciated. But while she was looking out the window, she heard some rustling on the bed. Finally, a week after the curse was lifted, Eden woke up. She was very glad that he finally opened his eyes. He had no idea how long he had been unconscious. She checked every hour if he was breathing. The guy still didn't understand what was happening. He brought his hand to the girl's face and remembered how she cried that day. She didn't understand why he was talking about it so suddenly. It was a few days ago, and it was just a physiological reaction because she was in a lot of pain. Humans evolved to cry when they were sad and ask for help. At that moment, it just hurt. Eden thought she was a liar. But what was more important was whether his body was okay now. She needed to check his wound. As he sat down on the bed, Lady noticed that his shoulders had become a little broader and he had grown a little taller. Did the curse slow down his physical growth? Anyway, it's good that the curse is gone. Using the dragon's heart was worth it. Eden became embarrassed and asked why she went so far, since she said that the heart was very valuable. She was happy because she thought that this was his way of expressing his gratitude. He looked very nice. Well, in a way she saved his life. Maybe when he grows up he won't kill her as a token of gratitude, but asking her not to kill him when he grows up seems a little strange. She reminded him that when he grew up he would have to pay her a high interest rate, so it was better not to forget about it. She helps him because she believes in his future. Eden again could not answer anything to this. She asked him why he was silent. He wasn't planning to run away. He just said sweetly that he would pay her when he grew up. Finally, he believed that he could grow up. Several days had passed since Eden had awakened, and outside preparations were in full swing for the start of the hunting festival. Previously, the girl would have refused to participate and locked herself in her room. But this year, that won't happen because this hunting festival is the best chance to help Eden escape. Since this is a major event involving knights from all over the continent, there will be multiple teleportation gates open. If she pretends it's an accident and pushes Eden towards one of them, he will be able to escape safely. Well, this festival is also important for the girl because the reward in this hunting festival will be the thing that is the key to her escape. So she was determined to win this year. The guys who were training didn't understand what was happening to the lady. Usually, she would make a couple of swings and then give up, saying that it was too difficult. Rumor has it that she passed the final exam, which means she is currently practicing for the hunting festival. They also heard that she used a mechanism to pass the exam. Edward is not participating this year, so maybe that's why Lillian decided to participate, just to take advantage of the chance. It was hard for her to exert herself physically for so long after using her head for so long, but she still seemed to be warming up enough. She turned to the two guys, which made them a little scared and embarrassed. She asked them if they had already formed teams to participate in the hunting festival. They gave a positive answer, as they had already finished organizing among them. Lily asked if she could join them. One of them asked if she was really going to participate. It was too shocking for everyone. Suddenly, Lawrence came and reminded her that because of the accident that happened at the hunting festival 2 years ago, she was banned from participating for 5 years. And she asked if she should be reminded of that incident if she had forgotten. She brought a low-ranking poison monster, which ended up splattering the entire hunting tent with poison, but she eventually escaped from it. She was indeed banned from participating because of this situation, but in the end, Lawrence had no choice but to destroy the poisonous monster. She said it won't happen again, and that's why she's training. She'll handle the ban personally, so there's no need to worry about her. She takes this competition seriously, so her brother should be careful. Lawrence has never defeated Edward in a hunting competition, but every year he has shown excellent leadership and sword skills, and has achieved good results, so he is a serious opponent. Lily said that he does not need to help her like that time, because this time she will defeat him. She smiled sweetly and told her brother not to expect mercy. The brother took offense at her, turned away to leave, and told her not to behave stupidly. This time he wouldn't worry about whether some low-level monster would finish her off. The girl was delighted and shouted, did everyone hear her ambitions, and also invited everyone to join her in defeating Lawrence. Suddenly someone addressed her in a serious voice. The heroine was approached by the commander of the 1st Night Squad, Jean Hillis. He told her not to interrupt the knight's training and to be prudent. The lady asked for forgiveness, but said that she was in complete despair and could not participate in the hunt without partners. She told him that if he was really worried, he could team up with her, but she noticed a guy standing behind the commander. It was Ravi Hillis. He is the younger brother of Commander Jean Hillis, a knight who died protecting the main character until the very end during the main character's first kidnapping. With his strong loyalty and excellent abilities, he will become a valuable ally. She approached Ravi Hillis, but he did not understand how the girl knew his name. She in turn invited him to team up with her. The elder brother did not want his younger brother to be involved in the hunt. He was extremely unhappy. Although he seemed meek on the outside, he would eventually replace Jin as the knight's commander, as Lillian recalled. She remembered the reason why Ravi could become the next commander, because in the original, Jean Hillis died during the upcoming hunt. She couldn't just leave it like that and proposed a bet. This time, she will save the life of Jeannie Hillis to form her own strong team. She understands that the knights do not want to be on a team with someone incompetent, but she also needs a team. The one who lost to her in sparring would join her. That was her bet, and also her order. Jin agreed to these conditions, but if the girl lost, he asked her to immediately leave the training ground. Lily was very happy that he agreed and called her personal servant to bring what the heroine had prepared. As usual, in a hurry, Sasha brought her on a tray what the heroine had wanted to try for so long. It was some kind of glove with a mana crystal, a new invention of Lillian. The boys at the training grounds were screaming about how she could bring a piece of metal into the sacred training grounds, but it didn't bother Lily one bit. There are no weapons restrictions in hunting, and right now she is looking for a hunting partner, so there is no problem with that. Jin agreed that it wouldn't cause any problems. She asked if she could start first with a sword in her hands. The guy said that he would not hold back. He was very interested in why she was so confident in her abilities. She thought of challenging the Knight Commander with such a crude tool he would not spare and show the difference in their strength. Then the lady would no longer dare to appear on the hunt or training ground again. So he was going to protect her, when suddenly the battle began. He really attacks with the desire to fight, but in reality the girl should be grateful to him for this. The glove began to glow with a bright blue light, and at this time Jin did not understand how she blocked his blow so calmly. His eyes clearly showed concern. The glove absorbed the force of Jin's punch and can also release it back. He put all his strength into this attack, but it didn't affect her at all. Jin started screaming what she was doing. He was very surprised, but she absorbed the energy that he directed at her. Mentally, the girl thanked him for this power. This will allow her to strike back with incredible force. After she struck back, there was a huge explosion that sent them flying in different directions. Jin didn't understand how an explosion could happen while they were fighting with swords. Everyone who watched this incredible spectacle was also surprised and began to worry about the captain since he took the brunt of all the damage. Once things calmed down, Lily asked if he had actually tried to knock her out with just one blow. The explosion that just happened was the compressed energy from Jin's attack. A normal knight would never be able to comprehend such a level of power. But thank God she had the gauntlet, so she was able to show off its effectiveness in front of everyone. As soon as one of the observers called it magic, the heroine immediately became angry. Since this device was created using magical engineering, she screamed so that everyone would remember this. The commander did not understand how this could be magical engineering, since it did not have such power. Lillian turned her attention to the commander, who was sitting on his knees. His foot went out of the arena, which means he lost. He, like all normal men, and especially the knights of the city, accepted his defeat even if he had not crossed the line. He would still have lost. He confessed these thoughts to the heroine and stood proudly before her. He got down on one knee, kissed the girl's hand, and said that he would accompany her to this hunting festival. With a bold smile, Lillian simply welcomed him to her team. The commander looked at her and did not understand. She was so confident and with a relaxed demeanor and a blinding smile. He couldn't believe that she was really like that and not like all the rumors. But the girl did not forget about the captain's younger brother and told him that she wanted to fight with him now. But the guy refused to fight. Also got down on one knee and asked to honor her by allowing him to join her team. He will also accompany her to the hunting festival. The older brother was very much against this. Lily asked again if he was sure that he didn't even want to fight with her. He wanted to be with the lady from the very beginning, the nice guy admitted. From the moment she looked at him and not his brother and said his name, he knew in that moment what he wanted. The older brother rushed at Ravi, reminding him that he said that he could not participate in the hunting festival. The festival is always dangerous, but this year even more so. This was due to the fact that the festival coincides with the emergence of the centipede from hibernation. If something happens to Ravi, their mother will definitely not survive it. But the brother was very persistent. He wanted to join the festival as a knight of the Sergeyevnev family. Ravi reminded his brother that he was not only a brother, but also the leader of the first detachment of the Sergeyevnev Knights. In this harsh northern territory, the commander could not always protect someone just because they were one family. But Lily intervened in their conversation and said that there was no need to be so protective of his younger brother. Ravi is quite strong after all. He is a knight who has undergone training from Sergeyevnev. Great, now we just need to complete the team. She was the strategist, engineer, and brain of the team. Jean was a veteran and a skilled fighter. Ravi was flexible and agile. All that was left was to find a strong man for the team. She began to look around when suddenly she noticed a tall guy. She immediately approached him and asked his name. The guy's name was Cannon. He happily introduced himself. She asked this strong man if he already had a team, to which she received a negative answer. He also agreed to join her. Commander Jin looked at him with some distrust. He is undoubtedly incredibly skilled and has monstrous strength, but he has one significant drawback. He looked at the guy as he was enjoying his new team. Like a child, his intelligence was below average. In the midst of all this chaos, Lilian Sergeyevna's team was formed, and the team was the perfect fit. The team composition was simply flawless. Everyone had their own strengths that complemented each other. It was a perfect balance. But even with such a composition, it seemed she forgot something her two brothers, who were like monsters, immediately flashed through her thoughts. But any shortcomings can be compensated for with the right equipment, just like today. As the leader of the team, the girl planned to make her new friend stronger. The next day she came to the forge. There she was greeted by the blacksmith Olsen. He was the only blacksmith Sergeyevnev and the only one who took her development seriously and saw potential in them. He had helped the girl countless times. He found each of her drawings quite interesting, and he couldn't wait to see what she came up with this time. She put a huge drawing on the table and looked at it very carefully. He looked at the drawing and really appreciated her idea. The lady asked if he could create it. It would, of course, be very difficult, but he would do everything possible. The heroine was counting on Olsen. This thing will surprise everyone at the hunting festival. It was the main character's secret weapon. The girl was about to leave, thanked her beloved blacksmith once again, to which he replied that he would try very hard to do what she asked him to do. While the girl was walking, she thought, she formed a team and gave the order to the blacksmith. The most important task remained: how to get permission for her father to participate. Suddenly she saw her maid Sasha, who was in a great hurry to go somewhere. The heroine, of course, became very interested in where she was running, and she asked her. Sasha did not hide anything from her and told her what was happening. This greatly interested the lady, and she also began to hurry. There was no way they could miss such a spectacle. There were a lot of people on the training ground. As soon as Lily got there, she couldn't get through the crowd of people, as if everyone had gathered for an important event. Suddenly, someone grabbed her from behind to lift her up, which surprised the girl very much. It was Cannon. He said he was tall enough and could make the lady taller than she was. This really confused the girl, and she tried to stop him, but the guy continued to lift her up anyway. He abruptly sat her on his shoulders, and she could see everything. Now she saw Lawrence and Edward fighting. "Thank you very much, Cannon." She didn't know why her brothers were fighting, but her new friend told her that the eldest master had just returned from the battlefield. As soon as he met the second master on the training ground, they started fighting. There was no reason. Lilian watched this with caution. She knew that Edward would win, but there was one problem. Lawrence looked very exhausted during this battle. He had a lot of cuts on his face. The problem was that it looked more like a regular beating than a fight. Edward, of course, defeated his younger brother and began to mock him, saying that he always gets so excited so quickly, but every time it is very boring. The younger brother was very angry with him and with his weakness, even though he was in a lot of pain. He put in a lot of effort. Can he surpass his brother even for a moment? This really irritated and enraged him. Everyone started to worry about the young master and ran to him. Some guys tried to persuade him to take him to the infirmary, but Lawrence rudely told them to leave, because it was not over yet. He coughed very badly as he tried to call Edward. Lily saw how her little brother wanted to continue fighting in such a state. What was wrong with his head? Even if Brother Lawrence was picky and hated her for whatever reason, there was no way the girl could stand aside. She ran up to him, took his hand, and screamed at him to stop being stubborn and just give in. If he strained himself, given his injured muscles, it could get even worse. It would be sad if her main rival at the hunting festival suffered such a defeat. Lawrence couldn't understand how his sister could say such a thing after she had seen what a rival he was now to her. But Lily simply said that all the Sergeyevnevs are quite strong. It's just a small fuss because of the injury. He'll recover anyway. But her brother wasn't talking about the injury. The sister began to support him that her opinion had not changed. And if we take into account the general abilities, then the main rival in the hunt is Lawrence, her second brother, and not the first. Hunting is not a one-on-one sword fight, so there will be problems if her opponent disappears on his own, the lady said. Or maybe he wants her to take care of him personally, Lilian asked, and her brother was very surprised by this. She knew little about medicine, but if he really wanted it, she could take care of him. While my brother was thinking that he might not be able to use the injured side for the rest of his life, and it was very dangerous. But he still yelled at his sister to take her hands off him. Lilian began to joke that the expert's hands would be much better. She asked Cannon to take care of Lawrence. He didn't understand why he would take care of her and looked at the big guy with fear. Cannon picked up his girlfriend's brother on his shoulders and said that he would take care of the master's second son. With his right arm and left ankle injured and his ribs bruised, this psychopath beat up his younger brother thoroughly. At least it's broken properly, so it will heal well. The girl sat and thought next to her sick brother. Even though he hated her very much, what did he like so much about being dragged to the doctor? She just couldn't leave him like that, knowing how he clings to hope. She remembered her past life. That's how they treated her. She just couldn't walk away and pretend she didn't notice anything. When Lawrence suddenly spoke, he reminded her about participating in the hunting festival and asked if she was serious about what she said. The girl generally thought that he was passed out, but he came to his senses. She asked him what he thought was the reason for her going through all the training with Jin. The brother smiled and remembered how his younger sister never thought about anything, neither about the hunting festival nor about training. But all this was because no matter how hard she tried, she could not catch up with her brothers. This made her very angry and upset, so she did not want to see swords or anything related to the tournament at all. Suddenly, my brother said that he thought Lily was smarter. Lillian was mentally very angry with him and hoped that she'd simply heard wrong. But Lawrence said that if she was labeled as hopeless, her father might just throw her out of the family. Then she can avoid a stupid battle for the place of heir. The heroine thought it would be just like Eloise, who was expelled due to poor health, but it depends on the father's wishes. Relying on such an unreliable method, risking your life is stupid. My brother said that even if he trains to the point of exhaustion, thinking that anything could happen, the stronger he gets, the more he realizes that it is useless. No matter how hard he fights, he can only be a source of quality energy for that guy. He wondered if his body had weakened so much that his spirit had weakened too. Lily knew that what was happening was making him nervous. Lawrence had told her to leave. Suddenly, it dawned on the heroine that now was the time for the hunting festival and her plan. Perhaps she could persuade Lawrence to join her. She asked him if he wanted to become stronger, and as soon as her brother heard this, he immediately thought about it and was surprised. This would certainly be a good opportunity for Lawrence. She offered him a deal. Lily began to say that she didn't care about the methods and techniques, and that she just wanted to become stronger. The brother was a little scared by her expression and what she was saying and asked again. She offered him a deal. This deal would be a win-win for both of them. Lawrence thought she was talking nonsense, but she reminded him of the rumors that had been circulating around the estate lately, that her research had been successful. He heard that she defeated the genie with the help of a strange glove. But what kind of victory was this using some tricks? The heroine was a little offended by this, and she said that since he didn't trust her, he should just pretend that he hadn't heard anything. But she was sure that Lawrence, whom she knew, loved to compete and would not reject her offer, when suddenly the guy stopped her. He told her to finish what she started. He got caught. The girl sat down next to his bed again and joyfully began to tell her story. With the help of magic, she can help her brother, who so desperately hopes. Lawrence suddenly shouted and asked if she wanted to get rid of her scrap metal. But the only thing Lily wanted to ask was if he was okay. The brother was so surprised by this question that his eyes narrowed. Even the hard-working Lawrence could not overcome his fatal flaw. His right eye has been almost blind since birth. To overcome this, he orders assistants to help him practice dodging by throwing the ball only to the right side. He also sparred with knights one-on-one every day. Well, in the end, he couldn't even raise his sword against his older brother. Perhaps this proves that a person can't do anything about his innate weakness. Lily sweetly said that she would cure his right eye. But Lawrence pretended to be stupid and asked what was wrong with his right eye. Did he really think that the heroine didn't know this? They were in the same family after all. It was very pleasant for her brother to hear her call them one family. With the magical device the girl was making now, his eyes would be the same as everyone else's. Lawrence didn't understand how she would correct his vision with her device. It's a win-win deal. If he doesn't like it, he can just throw the device away. The brother was not stupid and asked what benefit his sister would get from this. Lily smiled and said that of course there must be some benefit to her. There was something she wanted to know. When the girl left the room, she saw Cannon. She asked if he was waiting for her. The guy was about to take the princess to the room, to which she began to say that she was fine and could go back herself. But Cannon learned that knights had no right to let a lady walk alone, and he had no doubts. As soon as they entered the room, Cannon noticed that the strange bird and the guy were fighting. People did not understand what was happening. It was Eden who was fighting Roxy. Roxy splashed water on Eden, who waved her away to get her to stop. Lily stood in front of them and asked what they were doing. By this time, Eden was already all wet. Roxy said she was following the command to water the flowers, but Lillian asked her to take care of Eden, to bring water, not to water him. He was so angry that he clenched his fist, but suddenly Cannon intervened in the conversation. He explained that the strange bird was the princess's invention, and Eden should not touch it. Eden asked who he was. He was the princess's subordinate. Suddenly, Cannon remembered Eden. He had heard a lot of rumors about them, that he was the princess's playmate. But as soon as Lily heard this, she was upset, because she tried her best to hide him. She asked rudely how it could have happened that rumors had started. Suddenly, everyone started saying strange phrases. Wow, what a cutie! Roxy also said that the eyelashes looked like they were painted on, and how a sleeping person could look like a picture. These voices sounded very familiar. Could Roxy really be reproducing the conversations that were taking place in this room? The maids came at night and admired Eden, but Sasha came in and asked everyone what they were doing there. The maids touched and examined Eden while he slept, and they were very surprised by his appearance. Once Lily realized what was happening, she was shocked. These girls are really crazy. Even though he was freed from the curse, he was not originally white and fluffy. What if something happens? She ordered to call Sasha immediately. As soon as the maid arrived, the heroine asked to convey to all the workers the words that she was about to say. If they looked at him even once more, the girl would gouge out their eyes. Sasha got scared and said that she would tell them everything. The heroine also turned to Cannon so that he would remember that she hates it when someone is interested in what belongs to her. Cannon will now not even smile at him. Lillian said that if others saw what belonged to her, she would simply gouge out their eyes, and everyone would understand this explanation much better. Suddenly, Cannon said that excessive obsession can lead to the loss of something valuable. The heroine was very surprised by such words from him. Only at such moments can he speak normally. Well, he bowed sharply and said that he would remember her words. As soon as he left, Lily wondered whether he was still a fool or not. The tired girl sat down on a chair and began to blame everything on Eden's beauty. Well, the guy heard this and asked if she really thought he was handsome. A handsome guy who doesn't get it. A typical trait for a protagonist, Lily thought. The heroine asked if Roxy did anything else to him besides pouring water on him. The guy boasted that after that very day he did not feel any pain at all. Well, it looks like that was the case. The heroine confirmed several times that the curse was completely lifted. Eden was very embarrassed and said that he should thank the lady. He very timidly said thank you to her. He was also the first person in Lillian's entire life who ever said thank you to her, and she also noticed that he was embarrassed. At first, he felt no emotions at all and knew only anger and grief. He looked like a wild cat, waving his paws in all directions. And now Eden looks more like a cat that you can even brush. It was very cute. Lily was even somewhat proud of him.